What happens when Hollywood's most laid-back star completely loses his cool on live television? When Jason Momoa, the man who made Aquaman a household name, found himself in the middle of a heated argument so intense that security had to escort him off the Clarkson show. This isn't just another celebrity meltdown. This is the story of how a simple interview question sparked a confrontation that left viewers speechless and the entertainment world buzzing for weeks. The Clarkson show was running like clockwork that afternoon. Kelly, dressed in a vibrant purple blazer, was in her element, chatting with the audience during the commercial break. Her infectious energy filled the studio as she prepared for her next guest. Jason Momoa had been making the rounds promoting his latest project, and his appearance on Kelly's show was supposed to be just another friendly stop on his publicity tour. The cameras rolled, and Kelly's smile beamed across the studio as she turned to face her guest. "Welcome back to the Kelly Clarkson Show. I'm here with the incredibly talented Jason Momoa." "Jason, thank you so much for being here today." Momoa, sporting his signature long hair and a casual black t-shirt, leaned back in his chair with that familiar, easygoing grin. "Thanks for having me, Kelly. Always a pleasure." "So, let's talk about your latest project," Kelly began, her voice carrying that warm conversational tone that made her show so popular. "You've been branching out into some really interesting territory lately. But I have to ask, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, there's been some talk in the industry about your approach to certain roles." Momoa's expression shifted slightly, his eyebrows raising with curiosity. "What kind of talk?" Kelly glanced down at her notes, then back up with a professional smile. "Well, some critics have suggested that you tend to rely heavily on your physical presence rather than really diving deep into the emotional complexity of your characters. I mean, you're obviously incredibly charismatic, and you have this amazing screen presence, but do you ever feel like you're being typecast?" The question hung in the air. Momoa's relaxed posture stiffened, and there was a flicker of annoyance across his features. "I'm sorry, what exactly are you trying to say here?" he asked, his voice calm but edged. Sensing the shift in energy, Kelly tried to soften her tone. "I'm not trying to say anything negative. Jason, I'm just curious about your perspective on how you choose your roles and whether you feel like the industry sometimes limits actors based on their physical appearance." "So you're asking me if I think I'm just a pretty face who can't act?" Momoa's voice was still controlled, but the tension was building. "No, that's not what I'm saying at all," Kelly replied quickly, her media training kicking in. "I think you're incredibly talented. I'm just asking about the challenges that come with being known for action roles." Momoa leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "Kelly, I've been acting for over 2 decades. I've done everything from television dramas to independent films to major blockbusters. I've worked with some of the most respected directors in the industry. So when you sit here and suggest that I'm just coasting on my looks, that's not just insulting to me. It's insulting to every director who's cast me, every writer who's written for me, and every actor I've worked alongside." The studio audience was silent. The comfortable atmosphere that had filled the room minutes earlier had completely evaporated. Kelly's smile faltered as she realized the interview was taking a turn she hadn't anticipated. "Jason, I really didn't mean to imply that you're not a skilled actor," she said, her voice defensive. "I was just trying to have a conversation about the industry and how actors navigate their careers." "Navigate my career?" Momoa's voice rose slightly. "You want to talk about navigating careers? Let's talk about how talk show hosts sometimes think they can psychoanalyze their guests on live television instead of just promoting their projects like they're supposed to." The tension in the room was palpable. Camera operators exchanged nervous glances as producers gestured frantically from behind the cameras. Kelly's face flushed as she tried to regain control of the situation. "Jason, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to do here. This is a conversation, not an attack on your abilities." "A conversation?" Momoa laughed sharply. You call questioning my acting credentials a conversation? You know what, Kelly? Maybe we should have a real conversation then. Let's talk about how you built your career on a singing competition, and then somehow decided that qualified you to critique other people's artistic choices. The audience gasped. Kelly's eyes widened with shock and anger. Excuse me? I've worked incredibly hard to build this show and my career. I don't appreciate you attacking my qualifications. And I don't appreciate you attacking mine, Momoa shot back, his calm demeanor gone. You want to talk about relying on one thing? You've been riding that American Idol wave for 20 years. At least I've expanded beyond my starting point. Kelly's professional composure cracked. That's completely unfair, and you know it. I've had a successful music career. I've done television. I've built this show from the ground up. I work incredibly hard every single day. So do I, Momoa replied, his voice louder now. But apparently, that doesn't matter to you. Because you've already made up your mind about what kind of actor I am based on what? My appearance? The fact that I'm a big guy who does action movies? I never said anything about your appearance, Kelly protested, though her voice lacked conviction. You didn't have to say it directly, Momoa countered. It's implied in every word of your question. You see me and think, oh, here's the muscle guy who probably can't handle Shakespeare. Well, newsflash, Kelly, I've done Shakespeare. I've done classical theater. I've done indie films you've probably never even heard of, because they don't fit your narrow view of what my career should look like. The producer was now standing just off camera, signaling to cut the feed, but neither Kelly nor Jason seemed to notice. You're putting words in my mouth. Jason, Kelly said sharply. I asked a legitimate question about typecasting, something that affects a lot of actors. You're the one who turned it into a personal attack. The argument spiraled further as the crew scrambled behind the scenes, until, finally, the cameras cut to an abrupt commercial break. The audience sat in stunned silence, realizing they had just witnessed one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. The conversation had turned into a personal attack. Momoa stood up from his chair, his imposing frame towering over the seated Kelly. You questioned my talent on national television, and now you're calling my response a personal attack? You started this, Kelly. You want to play journalist and ask the tough questions. Then you'd better be prepared for honest answers. Kelly also stood, her much smaller frame dwarfed by Momoa's presence, but her voice remained steady. Sit down, Jason. You're being completely inappropriate. I'm being inappropriate? Momoa's voice boomed across the studio. You're the one who decided to ambush me with questions about my acting ability instead of just talking about my new project like every other professional host would do. I am a professional host, Kelly snapped back. And part of being professional is asking real questions, not just giving celebrities a platform to promote their projects without any substance. Substance? Momoa's eyes flashed with anger. You want substance? Let's talk about substance. Let's talk about how you've built your entire brand on being the relatable, down-to-earth celebrity. But the moment someone challenges you, you show your true colors. The studio audience was completely silent, watching this unexpected confrontation unfold like a car crash they couldn't look away from. Some audience members were secretly recording on their phones despite the show's strict no-recording policy. My true colors? Kelly said, her voice trembling slightly. At least I'm not the one having a complete meltdown on television because someone asked about my career. Meltdown? Momoa laughed bitterly. This isn't a meltdown, Kelly. This is me standing up for myself and my work. Something you clearly wouldn't understand, since you've spent your entire career being handled by publicists and managers. That's enough, Kelly said, her voice cutting through the tension. I think we need to take a commercial break. No, Momoa said firmly, stepping closer to Kelly's desk. We're not taking a break. You wanted this conversation, so let's have it. You want to question my professionalism? Let's talk about yours. Let's talk about how you've ambushed other guests with questions they weren't prepared for. Kelly's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. I have never ambushed anyone. I ask thoughtful questions that my audience wants answered. Thoughtful questions? Momoa's tone dripped with sarcasm. There was nothing thoughtful about what you just did. You took a cheap shot at my acting ability, and you're trying to dress it up as journalism. The tension in the studio reached a breaking point. Security guards began moving closer to the stage while the show's director frantically signaled to cut to commercial. But neither Kelly nor Momoa backed down. You know what, Jason? Kelly said, gripping the edge of her desk. Maybe this is exactly why some people question your range as an actor. Because, right now, you're showing everyone exactly who you really are when the cameras are rolling and you can't hide behind a script. Momoa's jaw tightened, his hands balling into fists. And you're showing everyone what happens when a talk show host gets called out for being unprofessional. You can't handle it when someone doesn't just sit there and take your passive-aggressive questions. There was nothing passive about my question, Kelly shot back. I was direct and honest, which is more than I can say for your reaction. You want direct and honest? Fine, Momoa said, stepping closer. You're a mediocre interviewer who thinks asking controversial questions makes you some kind of hard-hitting journalist. But all you're really doing is trying to create drama for ratings. The audience shifted uncomfortably, some whispering to one another as the atmosphere turned from excitement to genuine concern. How dare you call me mediocre? Kelly's voice cracked. I've interviewed hundreds of guests, and none of them have ever reacted like this. Maybe the problem isn't with me. Maybe the problem is you. The problem is me. Momoa's voice rose. No, the problem is that you thought you could take a cheap shot at my career and I'd just sit there and smile for your cameras. Well, I'm not going to do that, Kelly. Then maybe you should leave, Kelly said coldly. Maybe I should, Momoa replied, his tone just as icy. But I'm not going to let you have the last word. You want to question my professionalism? Let's talk about how professional it is to blindside your guests with questions designed to make them look bad. Two security guards positioned themselves near the stage. The producer tried desperately to catch Kelly's attention, but she was too locked into the confrontation. I think this interview is over, Kelly said, pointing toward the exit. I'm not done talking, Momoa said defiantly. You started this conversation, and I'm going to finish it. You want to know about my acting range? Here's some range for you. I can go from respectful guest to someone who won't tolerate disrespect in about 30 seconds. Security, Kelly called out, her voice carrying across the studio. I need security up here now. The guards approached, but Momoa held up his hands. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just defending myself against someone who thinks she can attack my career on national television. Jason, please, Kelly said, her voice now trembling with emotion. Just leave. This has gone too far. It went too far when you ambushed me with your questions, he said, but he finally took a step back. You want me to leave? Fine. But everyone watching this is going to see exactly what kind of host you really are. The guards escorted him toward the exit. Momoa looked back one last time, his voice steady but heavy with disappointment. A professional host would have apologized by now, but I guess that's not in your playbook. Kelly stood behind her desk, chest heaving, as Jason Momoa was led away. The audience sat in stunned silence, processing what they had just witnessed. We'll be right back after this commercial break, Kelly managed to say into the camera, her voice barely steady. As the cameras stopped rolling and the studio lights dimmed, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. What began as a simple question about typecasting had exploded into one of the most dramatic moments in daytime television history. So, there you have it. the explosive confrontation that had everyone talking. Who went too far first? Kelly's questioning or Jason's reaction? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes celebrity moments where the cameras capture the truth and the gloves come off.